Hi there, I'm Annie Smith, and I want to tell you about the workshop that is called Stashbusters. And I want to show you what the quilts are and the techniques. So you have a choice. There are 5 different quilts to choose from. And of course, it's called Stashbusters because of whatever fabrics that you use, whether you use leftovers from a quilt that you've previously made, or you buy new fabric, or you go shopping in your stash, you'll be able to make more than one quilt from the fabric that you originally chose. And so let me show you the quilts that I'm talking about. Okay, the first one is called Courthouse Cabin, and it's a courthouse style log cabin quilt. And this is what the quilt looks like. It's really pretty cool. And so it's a courthouse steps with cornerstones that help you get accurate and precision pieced blocks. And I'm going to show you the technique for how to do this and all of the tips and tricks that I have to share with you. This quilt takes 27 fat quarters. So if you have a fat quarter collection in your stash, this is the perfect time to pull it out. And of course, I have supply lists for each of the quilts. And the cool part about this workshop is that I will consult with you on the fabrics that you choose for the workshop. And so if you send me your pictures, we'll have an interchange with email, and I'll help you know what will work for you. And I will also give you a pre-cutting sheet so that you can pre-cut all of the fabrics for the workshop so that you can make the best use of your time in the workshop and actually sewing your project so you have less to take home that's not finished. Okay, so with every quilt we have leftovers, so you'll have leftover strips. Here's what you can make with the leftover strips. And so this is called pocket change, and this is called checkered pass. And so this is a Chinese coins style quilt, and this is a variable 9-patch. Okay, and so here is pocket change. And this is made completely with the leftover strips of the previous quilt. And all I did to add to this quilt was the green background fabric. So it's pretty cool in that you can make 2 quilts out of the same set of fabrics, right? So there is pocket change. And then this one is made out of the leftovers that you have with pocket change. And if you think, wow, that's a lot of fabric, why do I have so much fabric left over from the courthouse steps quilt? It's because the number of blocks in the courthouse cabin is set at a certain number. And so you don't have just an over volume left over of your scraps, but just enough to make these quilts with only adding background fabric to them. And so this is a small 9-patch that is interspersed with little squares of the same size, which makes it a variable log cabin. And you can't see this in the video, but I used a bunch of different off-white fabrics that I had in my stash. So I had a very country old style look for this particular 9-patch quilt because that was the look that I wanted. Again, adding just the background fabric. And this quilt is actually bigger than the courthouse cabins quilt and the pocket change quilt. I don't know why, but that's what happens when you make this quilt. Okay, and then if you really don't like the fabric selection that I chose for my 2 original quilts, how about if you have a batik collection and you want to do a batik courthouse cabin? And then this is the pocket change quilt that is made from the leftovers of the batik courthouse cabin. So see, you have a lot of options. And the cool thing is that because the collections all go together. So like the first 3 quilts that I showed you and these 2 batik quilts, They play beautifully in the same room if you want to decorate a room with your quilts. But also if you have a friend who looks at your original quilt and goes, oh my gosh, I just love those fabrics so much, you could gift them a pocket change quilt or a checkered past quilt using the scraps from the original quilt that you make. These are also great for charity quilts. They go together so quickly. And also for Quilts of Valor, which actually a guild just did. And I have the information on my Instagram where you can find me at AnnieSmith QS, and the picture of the courthouse cabin quilt, all done in red, white, and blue, is up there. Okay, so then the next set of quilts is called Tangerine and Interchange. And this is done using half square triangles. And so here is the Tangerine quilt. And it was done using all art gallery fabrics. So if you have a collection of Tula Pink or, well, really colorful art gallery fabrics, this is really cool. And so you have a main grouping of fabric, and then with the opposite square, you have another fabric. And so these are odd and even. And so they just repeat. So you get a secondary pattern in your quilt. And this is done using a snowball block and flying geese blocks. And my technique for doing this, you trim away some of the fabric underneath when you make these, and you have a bunch of half square triangles left over. And so this is what you do with the extra half square triangles, and they're right there for you, ready to sew, and it works out really beautiful. So if you have a bunch of half square triangles left over from a quilt that you've been waiting to use, you can pull those out and make this quilt. And this works out so cool. I just love this quilt. So the only extra fabric I used was for the sashing and cornerstones and the border, because these half square triangles are already made up of the fabric that I used for the previous quilt. And so these are all pretty good sized quilts. So unless you have some very small half square triangles that are like 1 inch or 2 inches, you would be making a miniature quilt. But otherwise, if they're just, you know, the regular size 3x3, it'll make a really great sized quilt for you. So again, you have 5 quilts to choose from: courthouse cabin, pocket change, variable 9-patch, tangerine, and interchange. And so you have to decide which of those patterns that you want to use for the workshop. And I will consult with you on your fabric choices, give you the supply list and the pre-cutting list for the workshop so you're ready for it. And I think we're going to have a great time, because I'm going to teach each of the techniques for these quilts, so that while you're working on your quilt, you'll learn how to do the others as well, so that with the leftovers you have from the workshop, you'll be able to make another quilt as well. So anyway, again, I'm Annie Smith, and the workshop is Stashbusters, and I hope to see you real soon. I love technology.